Everyone thought they were numb by now. But nothing prepared the audience for what happened the moment Kaela Tucker stepped into that room, took her seat, and decided the silence had lasted long enough. Not the network. Not the gossip pages. Not even viewers who swore they'd already seen every type of chaos reality TV could manufacture. This wasn't a tantrum. This wasn't a storyline. This was a child finally exposing a truth she'd been forced to carry alone for too long. Her breathing wasn't steady when it started. The lights were blinding. The air felt heavy. And then Kaela said the words that made every producer in the room go still. Somewhere along the way, he stopped acting like a father. The internet froze mid-scroll. She described the calls that came too late in the night. The talks that went on too long behind closed doors. The attention that no longer felt parental, just invasive. And a shift in energy so unsettling it made her question every memory she'd ever trusted. You could see the strain in her eyes, not anger, not hatred, fear. She admitted she tried to swallow it. Tried to dismiss the discomfort. Tried to pretend she was overthinking. But it wouldn't stop. The words being used around her weren't innocent anymore. The compliments landed wrong. The interest felt strange. And whatever role he kept trying to place her in no longer resembled family. Then she faced the lens, unblinking, and shattered the illusion in front of millions. I didn't feel protected anymore. I felt unsafe. And just like that, everything online erupted. Because no matter what Todd Tucker believed he was doing, Kaela is finished staying quiet. You really believe this chapter was closed. You believe the Bravo world had already hit its emotional ceiling. But what Kaela Tucker has just unleashed, what she finally allowed herself to say after carrying it in silence for so long, has dragged everyone watching into something no one signed up for. She wasn't inventing it. She wasn't overreacting. She wasn't confused. My body understood before I did, she said. I panicked. I shrank. I felt unsafe. And I knew I couldn't stay. She admitted she carried it alone for months. Rewound every moment. Second-guessed every interaction. Blamed herself for not escaping sooner. But the weight eventually became unbearable. Silence started hurting more than the truth. So she chose to talk. This isn't punishment. This isn't attention. This is my reality, she said. And I won't deny it anymore. She made it clear she wasn't looking to destroy him. She wasn't chasing headlines. She wasn't chasing sympathy. She wasn't hunting revenge. She only wanted her body back. Her sense of safety back. Her life back. But her story refused to stay buried. The last line of part 1 burned through the internet like a match. I'm finally choosing myself, even if it costs me everything. And the world imploded. Fans erupted. Feeds collapsed. Bravo Twitter went to war. Blogs refreshed by the minute. Because Kaela Tucker didn't just break her silence. She broke the version of this family everyone thought was real. And this? This is only where it starts. The internet didn't rest after Kaela spoke. Not a single quiet moment. No casual scrolling. No background noise. It was like the entire Bravo universe had been locked inside an emotional blackout. Viewers were suspended between shock and sorrow, anger and disbelief, all circling one unrelenting question. What happened after she pulled away? What did Todd do when he realized she wasn't responding the way he expected? And why did everything collapse so fast, so quietly, so completely? Because according to those close to her, and later confirmed by Kaela herself, the moment she tried to create distance, the relationship detonated. It didn't begin with arguments. It began with absence. A cold, deliberate quiet. Not the kind born from disappointment. The kind that feels calculated. Like pressure without words. Like being told you owe an explanation without anyone asking for one. She said the stillness felt louder than any fight. Heavy. Strategic. Like he was waiting to see how long it would take before she cracked. She said the energy inside the home changed overnight. Hallways felt narrower. Conversations felt dangerous. And there were moments, unnerving, suffocating moments, where she felt like he was studying her. Watching for a reaction. Measuring her silence like evidence she didn't understand. She described it as living in sight lines she never volunteered to stand under. Then the quiet broke. Messages started arriving again. Nothing explicit. Nothing physical. Nothing illegal. But emotionally loaded. Weighted with subtext. Wrapped in language that made her chest tense. Notes about trust. Statements about closeness. Questions about what changed between us. Talk about restoring something she didn't know how to define. Each message left her more unsettled than the last because she could no longer tell what he was asking her to repair. A father-daughter bond, or the invisible line he wouldn't stop drifting toward. One message haunted her more than the rest. She didn't repeat it word for word on camera, but she summarized it with a breath so unstable the room leaned inward. He told me he felt I didn't value the connection he was trying to create. That I was closing him out. That he wanted us to have the kind of relationship nobody could misread. And I didn't understand what that meant. I didn't understand what he expected that to look like. She said she reread those words over and over, praying they would soften with time. They didn't. The unease grew. The intensity deepened. The implications sharpened. Everything felt like an emotional edge she was being pushed toward, even if nothing was ever said aloud. And that's when she stepped back further. She stopped replying immediately, cut conversations short, avoided being alone, kept everything shallow and brief. But the air darkened with every inch she retreated. She said Todd grew more present, more questions, more check-ins, more attention. And none of it felt gentle anymore. It felt monitored, observed, like concern wrapped in control. She didn't know how to explain what she felt without sounding heartless. Didn't know how to voice her fear without tearing the family in half. So she held it in. And the panic kept growing quietly inside her. But everything finally snapped on a night she says she'll never forget, the night Todd asked to talk, and the conversation sounded nothing like a moment between a parent and child. It wasn't casual. It wasn't brief. It wasn't fatherly. He wanted answers. Why she was pulling away. Why she'd gone distant. Why she wasn't letting him in. Why she kept backing up when he insisted. She spoke about nights spent awake, replaying words she wished she could erase. Studying voices she didn't want to understand. Lying frozen with a weight in her stomach that refused to move. She said she begged herself to be wrong. To believe she was exaggerating. Projecting. Imagining things that weren't real. But the feeling never loosened its grip. Then the comments sharpened. Why are you avoiding me? You don't trust me anymore? We weren't always like this. And every sentence cut deeper, because they didn't sound like concerns from a parent. They sounded like accusations from a partner. And Kaela understood, if she didn't remove herself soon, something inside her would shatter. When she finally decided to go, quietly packing her things, slipping out without confrontation, she said it felt like oxygen rushing back into her lungs after being submerged for too long. But relief wasn't the only thing that followed her out the door. So did guilt. So did fear. So did confusion. And the space between them thickened into something darker than silence. She didn't contact him for weeks. Not out of anger. Not out of revenge. But because she was empty. Emotionally stripped. She needed time away from the pressure, away from the pulling, away from the fog, just long enough to figure out what she had lived through, without being dragged back into it. And when he contacted her again, softly, carefully, almost disarmingly polite, asking why she had vanished without warning, she felt it instantly. The cycle was restarting. The closeness. The emotional pull. The same questions wrapped in new packaging. And something inside her finally broke through the fog. She couldn't live inside this loop anymore. She couldn't keep swallowing it. She couldn't keep carrying it. She couldn't keep rewriting her pain just to make other people comfortable. She had to speak. She had to say it out loud. She had to claim her own truth before the weight pulled her under again. Her final sentence landed harder than anything that came before. I wasn't escaping him. I was finding myself again. And suddenly the story shifted. This was never about ruin. It was about release. And whatever came next was only the beginning. The world was still trying to process her disappearance when the next moment cut through. The moment Kaela returned to view, no longer a daughter drowning in fear or guilt, but a woman ready to speak from surviving something she couldn't neatly explain. This time, there was no trembling, no shrinking, no apologizing for existing. She walked back into the light like someone who had lived inside something unseen and heavy for far too long, something confusing enough to trap her, but undefined enough to leave scars no one could see. The cameras were already on when she arrived. Her hands were steady, her posture rooted. One breath left her chest, deep and deliberate, and everyone watching knew this wasn't reflection. It was reckoning. She opened with a sentence no one expected. I'm not here to ruin anyone. I'm here to reclaim myself. The room seemed to shift around her. Then she spoke about what no one ever talks about, the damage that lingers after you walk away from something that wrapped itself around your emotions. Leaving didn't end the noise. It amplified it. Memories sharpened. Conversations replayed. Moments twisted. She described confusion curling into guilt, guilt collapsing into panic, panic hardening into numbness. She admitted there were nights she woke convinced she wasn't alone, not because anyone followed her, not because she was being watched, but because emotional grip doesn't release just because distance exists. It takes root inside your thoughts. It interrogates you while you try to sleep. Was it really that bad? Did I imagine it? Did I hurt him instead? Was I wrong? She said that doubt was the cruelest part, not the discomfort itself, but the voice inside that nearly erased it. Even after leaving, she couldn't stop checking her phone, reading old messages, replaying conversations, convincing herself the whole thing might have been in her head. Trauma doesn't just wound you. It confuses you. And for months, she lived suspended between maybe and what if, unsure whether she was hurt or heartless. Until one day, she finally sat across from someone who wasn't family, wasn't a friend, wasn't emotionally tied to her life at all. A therapist. She said she walked in afraid she'd sound ridiculous. Afraid she'd be dismissed. Afraid the reaction would confirm her worst fear, that she made it all up. But after she spoke, after she described the tone, the closeness, the pressure, the emotional gravity, the therapist didn't blink. Instead, she said something that cracked everything open. You were emotionally cornered. Kaela collapsed into tears. Not because the words were brutal, but because they were accurate. For the first time, someone handed her language that didn't accuse her, didn't shame her, didn't minimize her. It wasn't misconduct. It wasn't scandal. It wasn't a crime. It was being pulled into an intimacy you never asked for. A closeness you didn't agree to. A bond that demanded weight you were never meant to carry, simply because the person holding the rope was someone you were taught to trust. And that changed everything. She said that sentence rewired everything. It turned chaos into clarity. It didn't just explain what happened, it exposed how deeply it had carved into her. And that's when she made a decision. She would take her voice back. Not to destroy Todd. Not to shame him. Not to drag him through spectacle. But to reclaim the sense of self she said she had slowly lost. She admitted she practiced the words alone for weeks. Whispered them in mirrors. Rehearsed them in her head while lying awake at night. But the second she walked onto that set, the dam collapsed. The truth rushed out without permission. Without polish. Without fear. She spoke about the blurred edges. The quiet pressure. The strange intensity she couldn't explain. She described feeling watched emotionally, not followed, not stalked, but felt. Measured. Noticed in ways that left her unsettled. She talked about doubting her own thoughts. About questioning her instincts. About fighting her body just to feel normal again. And then she revealed the message she'd never let the public see. The one that finally pushed her past the point of return. I just want us to be close. Close on every level. She said she read that line again and again until her chest hollowed out. Not because it was graphic. Not because it was illegal. But because it carried something she had felt too many times to ignore. Weight. Expectation. Demand without words. That sentence didn't scare her. It confirmed her. That sentence is the one that sent her out the door. She said she finally chose to speak because she knew she wasn't alone. Because there are people everywhere living inside silent discomfort, afraid to say anything because they have nothing to prove. No screenshots. No recordings. Just a feeling that something isn't right. She said she wanted to give those people language. For the ones who cry in silence. For the ones who doubt their own instincts. For the ones who feel wrong inside relationships that are supposed to feel safe. Then came the moment that shattered the room. When she was asked what she would say if Todd ever confronted her. Her expression softened, not with anger, but with exhaustion. I wouldn't scream, she said. I wouldn't attack. I'm not trying to punish him. I just want him to understand what it did to me. I was never rejecting him. I was trying to survive. The silence that followed hurt. Even the camera operators looked away. Then she added quietly. I asked for space because I didn't feel like his daughter anymore. I felt like something else. Something I couldn't name. And not being able to understand that nearly broke me. Those words cut deeper than any accusation. Because she wasn't branding him a villain. She wasn't assigning crimes. She wasn't turning this into a courtroom. She was telling a feeling. And feelings don't need labels to destroy you. Then she spoke the line that set the internet on fire. I still love him. Not the way he wanted me to. Not the way things became. But the way a daughter loves a complicated father. I just can't disappear to protect him anymore. The internet split down the middle. Some wept. Some raged. Some defended. Some denied. But nobody could say she wasn't real. And in that moment, viewers across the world felt the same truth echo inside them. This wasn't scandal. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't exposure. This was survival. And then her final words detonated across the Bravo universe. I didn't tear my family apart. I stopped tearing myself down. And that was when everything changed. Because this is where the story stops whispering and starts roaring. This is the moment it leaves the shadows and sets fire to every timeline, every conversation, every household pretending that emotional harm doesn't count unless it comes with bruises. Kaela didn't just speak. She unearthed an emotional war no one wanted to admit existed. And whether people were ready or not, the truth wasn't going back underground. You heard her break. You felt it through the screen. You watched her stitch herself together live in front of millions. And if any part of that landed inside your chest, then you already know. This is bigger than Bravo. Bigger than drama. Bigger than gossip. This is the kind of truth that forces people to stop avoiding what feels uncomfortable. So don't swipe past this. Don't mute this. Don't pretend it didn't shake you. Because today, she stood alone. Tomorrow, she doesn't have to. If her courage spoke to you, amplify it. If you saw yourself in her, say something. If you believe silence is the real enemy, break it. Because once truth starts burning, no one can smother it. This isn't the ending. It's the first moment she was finally heard. And now, your voice is part of the story.